loves us, and that might, in fact, separate families. Because you might be doing what you know is right in God's word, but it might not be right in what the world is telling you to do. Because the world is not always based on what God says is right. So Jesus comes back today and says, okay, who's going to go after this lost lamb? Who's going to find this lost lamb? And how do we determine if this lamb is important or if this lamb's not, or if this coin is important or this coin's not? So the other day, I was watching 13 Lives. Who here has seen the movie 13 Lives? It's a Ron Howard film. Okay, after this, you might want to watch it. 13 Lives is about a true story, and I want to get the dates right here. It happened in North Thailand, and it happened in sorry, I thought I had it all wrapped up nice and neatly. It happened in 1998, and there was a team of 11 through 16-year-olds that were on a soccer team, or a football team is what they call it over there, and they had been at practice. And these 11 to 16-year-olds got through with practice, and they had a team birthday party that was coming up later on in the day. And they had, maybe an hour and 15 minutes in between. So instead of saying, I'll go home and rest, like most of us would, they said, I know, let's go get on our bikes and let's go drive to the cave and go into the cave for this hour and 15 minutes that we have. And so that's what they do. They get on their bikes, except for one of them, because one of them had to stay around and help get ready for the birthday party. And since they didn't have an adult going with them, one of the assistant coaches said he would go. And so he was 25, and these 12, 11 through 16-year-olds got on their bike and they went into this cave. Now, what you need to know about this cave is in Thailand and the monsoons start, and so the cave is closed from July the 1st until the 1st of November. So this again made it more important because the date of this was the end of June, and they knew they only had 2 or 3 more days before they would be able to go into the cave, before they wouldn't be able to go into the cave. So the cave actually has 20 miles of mapped places you can explore. And so the boys went in, and the boys were in maybe 30 minutes, and the monsoon started. They started almost a week early, and it rained so hard. Think back to Hurricane Harvey. And the floods came up, and the floods came up, and the floods came up. And the boys were in the cave, and they didn't come out, and they didn't come out, and they didn't come out. And one mom called the coach afterwards and said, hey, my son never made it home from practice. And the coach said, well, I let him out an hour ago. And so she called another mom, and you know how moms do. They did the mom circuit, and they found out that the kids weren't there, and then they found the one child that didn't go, and he said, oh, yeah, they were going to go to the cave. Well, the cave from far back looks like a woman that's lying on her side, and so it's called the Mountain of the Sleeping Woman. And so they got to the cave, everybody in this torrential rain, all the moms and the dads, and they all go to the cave and they find all of the bikes. They're all out there. But they can't find any kids. And so like any mom or dad that couldn't find their child, they went headlong into the water and quickly started getting submerged, and they couldn't get out of the first area. Now the cave had been mapped, and it had all kinds of different names for different sections of it and everything. And so at this point, the parents just are beyond themselves. They don't know what to do, so they start calling the people in charge, and the people in charge finally get there. And so here's the timeline of what happened. This happened June 23rd, 2018. They're stranded. June 24th, the Thai Navy SEALs arrive. June 25th, the British cave divers arrive. Now, what's interesting about this is that one of the British cave divers was from that area, and he just happened to be there. And so when he heard what was going on, he came down. And so the Navy SEALs tried to go in, the Thai Navy SEALs, and they couldn't get very far, but they were able to map some of it. And so they got as far as they could, and they left the markings and everything, and it got too murky, so they came out. So by this time, the boys were gone for 2 days. And then the British cave diver came down there, and he said, I've got some friends that are over in England, and we can do this. And the Thai people are saying, if we can't do it, what makes you think you can do it? And they said, well, because we're from Great Britain, and Great Britain is on an island, and there's a lot of caves, and we're used to going into caves, and you're used to going into seas where you go down deep. We're used to going in caves where you meander this way. So they went and they called the other British cave divers, the best in the world, and they came over to Thailand. Then this civil engineer that just happened to be visiting his family right there in Thailand was there. And so he decided, because he was from there, even though he didn't live there at the time, and his specialty was, you know how God works, how to divert water. So he goes up on the mountain and he figures out the best way to do that. And he knows this old man of the mountain that's lived there his whole life, that's in his 80s. And he's telling the government, you need to get this guy. And the government's going, he's just an old man. What's he going to know? So the engineer goes and gets the old man, and the old man comes, and he can tell them where all of the shafts are, because the rain's not only filling up from the bottom, it's coming down these shafts, and it's quickly filling. And so then the old man of the mountain goes and he gets all the villagers. Now the villagers can't speak English, they can't speak the other languages, but they know what this guy's saying, and he's going, you go get bamboo poles and bring them to me. So all of these villagers that live around there go and they're cutting down with machetes all of these bamboo poles, and they're cutting them in half so they'll act kind of like pipes do to drain it. So then the engineer gets on the phone and he calls all of these friends that he knows, and they get these pumps in and they get other pipes in, but then they've got to divert the water somewhere. And they say, where do we do that? Well, there's all of these rice fields down here, but these are 8 families' livelihoods. And if the water goes into these 8 fields, these people are going to be broke for at least a year, if not 2 or 3. So the families are sitting there, and the engineer comes down and he goes, we want to divert the water into your rice fields, but I'm going to tell you it's going to be at a cost. And every single one of them looked around and said, it's for the boys? He said, yeah, it's for the boys. And every single one of them said, okay. Knowing they were going to lose their livelihood for at least 1 year and maybe up to 3. So at that point in time, the divers start coming, and the first group of divers over from England come, and they get as far as the Thai Navy SEALs did before they come back. And the next day, they get more materials, and they go even further, and they find where the Navy SEALs stopped. And where the Navy SEALs stopped was because all of the rocks had fallen down, and there was a 15.5 by 28-inch tunnel to go through. And these guys have tanks on them because they're scuba diving, and they have to get through this little bitty hole. So they finally get through it, and they get down into the cave, and they're approximately 2.5 miles into the cave, and they finally have a place they can come up. And when they do, they said they smelled the boys before they could hear them. And there were these boys that had been sitting there for 5 days by this time with their coach. So they had found them, but they still didn't have food to give them. They still didn't have anything else, but now they at least knew that the boys were alive. So they said hello to them, they left them clean batteries and flashlights, and they went back. From getting to them to going back, each time they went was 5 hours if they were going with the current, and 6 hours if they were going away. So it wasn't like something you just popped up and did. So they did all of that, and the next day they went in with more divers, and they went in with food, and they went in with blankets, and they went in with whatever they could do, and they had 2 medical doctors that were Navy SEALs that went in with them that were going to stay with the boys. So outside, they're doing everything they can to divert the water. Inside, they're doing everything they can to try to drain the water. They've got huge pumps in there and everything. The divers are going back and forth. It looks like everything's going to be okay, and then the CO2 levels go down. So it quits raining. They know it's going to start back within 12 hours. So they've got this small window of time that they have to go for it if they're going for it. And everybody's saying it's too dangerous because they had just lost a Navy SEAL in the swimming aspect of it. He had gotten caught. And they said, we can't expect these boys to do this if we're going to get them out. So I know you think I've told you the whole plot. I am not. I'm stopping there. You're not going to know if they got out or not. You'll have to watch the movie. It's Ron Howard, and it's a real story, and it's good. But the purpose in telling you all of this is from Australia in this time being. They had 6 federal police specialist divers, 1 Navy clearance diver, a medical assistant team member, a Department of Trade crisis team, 20 involved at the cave site, and 2 doctors. From Belgium, they had a cave diver. From Canada, a cave diver. From China, a 6-man team with equipment to rescue and a second team for search and rescue. From the Czech Republic, 4 high-performance pumps. Denmark, 2 cave divers. Finland, diver assist with refuse efforts. France, a diver. Ireland, a diver. India, pumps. Israel, a diver and emergency mobile communication devices. Japan, divers and engineers and drainage specialists. Laos, search and rescue. Netherlands, water pumping experts. Russia, cave specialists. Ukraine, divers ×2. The United Kingdom, 8 cave divers, the leading ones in the world in diving equipment. The United States, 6 personnel from Okinawa, 6 special ops and rescue. Stage equipment, medical personnel, volunteers from Germany, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Spain, Sweden, Ukraine, France, drones, robots, and even sniffer dogs. Over 10,000 people all over the world responded to these 12 little boys and their coach. They were Hindu, they were Buddhist, they were Christian, they were Jewish, they were atheist, they were every faith and non-faith you could think of. They were from every country. They were from everywhere, and they were all together for these 12 boys, 11 through 16. Now, how easy would it have been for those little boys to just disappear, nobody know anything, and nobody happened? But this is the kind of thing with the one sheep that's gone that Jesus is talking about. That one of the least, the last, and lost, and little is so important. There is nothing you have done in your life or can do in your life that God will not leave the 99 for to go find you. That God will not climb the mountain or go in the deepest crevice, even if you're 2.5 miles back in the middle of a monsoon, to find you and to be with you. And with the coin that was dropped, wherever it went, God went too. Be it in that cabinet underneath that has all of the gunky stuff because the mop and the broom can never get back there to get it. God will go back there in all of that filth, in all of the darkness, to recover that coin, because that coin is you. You are the most important thing. And God's reckless love, regardless of what you've done in your life or what you will do, is out there to get you and to share God's reckless love with you. And in our world, we call that grace. And all God's children say, amen.